Okay, hi, Edward Campbell, Bozeman, Montana, March 24th, 2017. Let me clear up a couple things. First thing was that I misspoke when I said I knew that Donald Trump had made a mission to assign the order for the mission to the moon. I meant mission to Mars. Of course I know that, which I'm totally against and still against. And so I wanted to get back to a couple things, and I'm on the clock, so this is going to have to be fast. We're going to talk about this thing. Talked about irony and the difference between what I was saying about Socrates. Irony is saying the opposite of what you mean. Jesting in earnest is Spoudogeloion, Spoudogeloios. That is to mix jest and earnest. So, for instance, if I said, "Nice to see you again," or if when I was done, I say, "Okay, I'll see you later," that would be irony, right? Because that's the opposite of the state of affairs. But if I were to say, "I'm not a teacher, but I play one on TV," that would be Spoudogeloion. It's jesting in earnest. This is irony. And this is jesting and earnest. Okay? Another way of doing that is, for instance, if I said, this is what Socrates really does. They accuse him of being an ironist, and saying which is to say that he calls things by their opposite, but they don't understand that what he really does is jest in earnest. So, for instance, if I were to say, "Behold, the sacred scripture, the wisdom of the ancients," and then did something which is quasi-religious, and I focused the camera here on these books, then you would understand that I was jesting in earnest, right? Because I'm joking, in a manner of joking, but I'm serious about it in this matter of fact. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. Is I'm going to focus in on the books, right? And then I'm going to tell you that this is the wisdom of the ancients. See there? That's the wisdom of the ancients. Part of it. It's not all of it. So maybe I should get down on my hands and knees and pray. Boy, I shouldn't have did that. So now I can't see anything at all. Oh, okay, so here we go. All right. Jesting in earnest. So now, if I were to get down on my knees and put my head on the floor, you would understand that I actually mean that. Not just doing that. I'll give you another example. This is an example of Socrates jesting, or this is in Plato. This is an exchange between Socrates and Alcibiades. It's the last final speech in the symposium. I've done it myself. I have it right here. And so when you look at my manuscripts here on selected works, this goes out on E.H. Campbell News Desk. But the selected works is where the scholarly stuff is. You understand that the Greek is on verso and the English is on recto. So you print it out double-sided like this. The Greek's on this side, the explanation is on this side, the English translation is on this one. Just to point that out. Okay, so I've got a few minutes. Okay, so Agathon at the end of Agathon and Socrates end up in an exchange, which amounts to this Spoudogeloios, jesting in earnest. So Agathon comes in, he's drunk, and Agathon said to his boys, meaning his slaves, it's Paideas. This is Paideas, right? ideas, boys. But here he doesn't mean children, he means slaves, right? But paideia means boys, okay, literally. Take off his shoes that he may recline, is the third among the two of us. By all means, Alcibiades said, but who along with us will be the third drinker? And at once, turning around, he saw Socrates, and seeing him, leapt back in fear and said, by Heracles, who is this? Is this Socrates lying in wait for me again, here? Just as usual, turning up where I least expect you will be. And why are you here now? And why are you reclining there? So as not to sit next to Aristophanes, or even someone else who is just as a ridiculous man, and one who is among the willing, but to have contrived in a manner so as to recline for dinner next to the most beautiful man in the house. And Socrates said, see if you can help me, for my love for this man over all men has become no trivial affair. For from the time I fell in love with this man, it was no longer possible for me to have seen or argued with a single beautiful man, or this man will be jealous of me, and, bearing a grudge, does marvelous things, railing at me, can hardly keep his hands to himself. And then Alcibiades says, oh no, this is continuing with Socrates. So watch out in case he tries to do something now, but reconcile us. And if he attempts to overpower me, come to my aid. For I am completely afraid of his madness and his devotion. But there is no reconciliation between you and I, Alcibiades said. But with respect to those matters, I shall have vengeance upon you once again. But for now, Agathon, he said, give me some of those ribbons, that I may crown this man's wonderful head, and blame me not for crowning you, for he prevails over all men with logic, not only early in the day like you, meaning Socrates, but all the time. Therefore you are not crowned. So we got this word love. I'm going to put this over here. See, what's happening here is jesting and earnest. Alcibiades and Socrates are great friends, but he's like, what are you doing here, laying in wait for me like this? Because this word love here is we understand it from Socrates' earlier speech in the symposium, that love is the love of the soul. And he explains, Socrates explains this in I believe, Lucis as well, is that, it's that if you don't love, if you look at me and you love me, you love my body, you don't love me. So there's two kinds of love, right? So these kind of people here, let's make it a big one this time. Let's just make it a real big one. Who do this kind of thing. They latch onto this word love, and they try to say, see, it says love. But it doesn't mean it means this kind of love. It doesn't mean this. It's not what's going on here. So I wanted to point that out. The other thing is, okay, I've got, there's another group coming in. So to point out the difference between irony is calling things by their opposites. Aristophanes took an actor, put him on stage, called the guy Socrates, put the words in his mouth. I remember the good old days when we used to march the boys to school naked and forbid them to cross their legs until they grew proud of their manhood, round about the time they got fuzz on their nuts. And Socrates said that the apology really wouldn't be so bad if the man would speak for himself, because this is what I was saying about putting the opposites. Putting the words in someone else's mouth and saying he said that. This is what's been happening in the media to certain individuals. So I wanted to do that. I want to point out. So I keep losing my threads here. So I want to make it clear that Socrates, when he says that he loves the man, he says that he loves his soul. When he calls the man a beautiful man, he means that this man has a beautiful soul. And that Alcibiades, aside from Plato, who's invisible in all this, was, Socrates' greatest follower, really. And all in all. And that he was, as he said, jealous. If Socrates would speak to another man. Okay, I wanted to show another thing here. Because rhetoric here is the most powerful tool that humans have in their entire arsenal of anything they've got. No matter what, I don't care what. So I did this thing and I said, okay, a scientist can tell you what can be done. Can tell you what can be done. A rhetor will tell you what will be done. Okay, the thing I wanted to point out about this is another rhetorical technique. There's lots of these sorts of things that I wish I hope to have time to get around to. Sometimes they call this a parallelism. Parallelism. Because can, will, right? That's not really what it is. What it really is called the parataxis. Let's see, where's the accent? Parataxis. Parataxis. Parataxis, which means side-by-side arrangement. So I wanted to do this another way, like this, right? So suppose I go like this and say, and go, will, and then change this to can, right? Can. This is called chiasmus. Let's see, I better look at this. Chiasmos, okay. Chiasmos. Chiasmus. Right. Parataxis. Chiasmus. See, because this is the letter chi. Can't give it to you all in now. I can't give it to you in 15 minutes. I've got all this stuff here. I got all these books and everything. I gotta get out of here. So we talked about metonymy. About how So we talked about metonymy. Metonymy is how we substitute words. So Maggot becomes Grub becomes a protein. A maggot fed to a chicken is a grub fed to a human. It's protein. You have to be careful about this kind of thing. You can find examples of this. Lots of people bringing it up. I just wanted you to know what this is. It's called metonymity. This is very important. This is one of the ways that people become very wildly deceived. You know. Okay. So I wanted to point out another guy. Okay. So the guy who's talking about this, when he said that, when I said mission to Mars, he said herds of the future. Herds of the future. Right. So I want to point out something else real fast before I have to clear out here. Okay. So. Robert Nath now, right? As far as he's concerned, is to create the normalization of the consumption of insects. So his plan was to infiltrate 1% into the food supply. So this guy, he's in Austin. He's in Austin Trinity, Austin, Texas. This is in Austin Trinity. This is a bean count smarty pants, right? So when I say food of last resort, he says, and I said, well, so you're going to substitute insects for real food? All right? You take this to the third world and give it to starving people, it's not exactly a free choice, is it? This is, insects is already food. Insects is already food. Okay. Insects are already food. Insects are already food. Right? Because if you were riding a motorcycle and a bug flew in your mouth and swallowed it, then you just stayed as an insect. If you ever drank river water, swallowed an insect. So if 1% has an insect in it, 1% of your food, then insects are already food. Right? This is called synecdoche, which is part for a whole for a part. But even more sophisticated than that, synecdoche is the exception. Now, proper logic is that the exception proves the rule. But when he does this, and he brings up Islam, where the thing in Islam says that if a fly lands in your milk, you dip it in and you throw it out. Or in Judaism, your food could be 10% corrupt. Your food could be 10% corrupt. Now, you know, the guy wants to try and talk over me because he's being counted smarty pants and he doesn't, you know, he just thinks he's got the show here. So I said, you know what this is really all about? It's not this. It's not that insects are already food. The issue here is that we don't throw away food just because it has a little bit has a little bit of improper, unlawful contents, right? So the joke in the yeshiva is that if a rat falls in the cholent, can you still eat it? Because they make cholent in big vats like this, right? If a rat falls in the cholent, can you still eat it? Not as long as it's less than 10%. That's a joke. I tried telling the joke, the guy was going on. I just want to go on and on. So, okay, I got to roll. So, I'll see you next time, right? What was that? Was that irony? Okay, over and out.